Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now. Hello, everybody, or I should say hello, world. This is a live recording of a not-so-live video on YouTube. I am here with Renee Aravallo, who happened to win the webcam that we gave away in conjunction with Citrix as a part of GoToMeeting, which is what we are using right now to network with one another. And if he was chosen out of the array of people who participated with the giveaway, he decided that he wanted to do an interview with me, which I thought was kind of exciting. And so he had a list of questions after, I said, hey, congratulations, and sent him the webcam, which he has some, some news around the webcam. Since he already has one, he's planning on doing something special with the webcam, and I'll let him say what he's going to do there. I don't want to steal his thunder, too much of his thunder, because this, ensuing recording is really all about Renee, as well as the questions that you might have posed since I threw it out to the community on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, and even YouTube. I said, if you had a question that you would want to ask me in an interview, feel free to pass it along, and Renee, as a moderator of sorts, will be able to ask. So your voice is being heard again vicariously, and Renee is the host. So I do have to thank once more Citrix for helping make this possible, and they've been a great sponsor of ours, and I certainly wouldn't be able to we wouldn't be doing this without Citrix. And I enjoy also meeting, I guess, our community supporters in general. All right, Renee, you good with our interview juice?
Yes, I am.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Always makes a good interviewer for a good interview. You're not going to interview the glass. You're just going to interview me. So this is the preparation of the list of questions that is about to come, or are about to come. The list is about to come my direction. I had to stop and think twice there. Okay, so Renee, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself in your amazing Atari shirt, as well as what your plan is with your webcam that you received.
Well, my name is Renee Arevalo. I'm from El Paso, Texas, and I was just mentioning to you, Chris, that I thought it would be a great idea to maybe donate the camera or the webcam to somebody maybe in need of one that maybe can't afford it. And I was actually talking to my wife about maybe even donating it to the YWCA. Maybe that might be a good thing locally for me to do. But if anyone else has an idea, go ahead and let Chris know, and I'd be taking it in consideration as well.
That's very admirable. So thank you, Renee. I certainly think that I don't think anybody would be disappointed by that. Of course, I don't think many people who didn't have a webcam who wanted one would be disappointed in getting one. But you only have one to give away at this point.
Sadly. Exactly.
So you have some questions for me.
I do. I feel like we're in like the actor studio in some sorts. A geek version, I guess you could say.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I was as smooth as he is, but I'm going to do my best, and I hope the community appreciates what I'm going to try to do here.
Well, I appreciate it, and that's what matters.
I do too.
Appreciate it, so.
I do too, a great deal. So I'm going to start off with the first one that I have here. What made you start Lockerdome? I've known you've answered this several times, but I've seen it in the community a bit, and I actually wanted to know myself.
It is something that I am asked frequently, and it's a story that seems to change depending on my mood. Even though it was, I would say, a coming together of a lot of things, really. And I had just started to pursue a graduate degree in industrial organizational psychology. I've always been interested or fascinated with how people interacted with technology. And I just so happened to pick up this book. Now, this is in a day and age when the internet was just starting to take off. I'd been online for a few years and saw this just amazing interaction and this acceleration of communication between people thanks to the internet. And so I'd read this book and said, all right, this is what I have to do. I know I'm just enjoying learning about how people interact with technology. And at that point, it was under the umbrella of IO, or industrial organizational psychology. So I started down that path. It took a couple of classes, and honestly, even the core classes I had a problem with, remembering certain names and dates and types. It got a little muddled, and it just so happened to be around the same time when I had an idea for kind of continuing what I was doing anyway, and that was sharing information using email. And I thought, why not make that a business, like sending out an email where I could tell people about my thoughts, my discoveries, things they could find online, the things that I thought were interesting. And so that's how Locker Gnome really first came about. And there are a few people who are still out there watching this YouTube channel who remember the very first few issues that were sent out. And I still have them on, I guess, somewhere in storage. Not physical storage, I think digital storage somewhere on one of my drives. I would dig it up again. The original name for Locker Gnome was Star.Star. Wow. And the reason why I kind of went back and forth, I just liked Star.Star. It was just funny. I mean, because it was a classic geek joke, Star.Star. I'd be surprised if anybody remembers that now. You'd have to be a command line jockey to understand that reference point, because it's not really used as much anymore. The domain was taken, and this was a day and age when you really couldn't spend too much of your money on a domain, because they all cost like $70 to $100. You could only get them through one vendor, and so I went to my high school nickname, which was my online handle, and that was Locker Gnome. And that evolved. I thought, there's a business model in this, not having any background in business, or almost failing out of economics in high school. I didn't think that I was cut out for it. So the fact that my business has been able to survive after all these years, I guess that just goes to show you that school's important, but grades aren't everything. Because if I went by grades alone, I would never have succeeded. I never would have even thought about it. And that's the nice thing about being an entrepreneur or having a business, is you don't necessarily need to have a background in something in terms of business, unless business is your business. Many times you can figure things out as you go along, or you talk to peers and you're able to. Sorry about that, I bumped the mic. Sometimes I forget when I'm wearing headsets, and then I'm talking with one hand, with the other hand anchored to the glass, so that I won't hit anything else in the room. So that's really how it happened. And then I just kind of rode the wave and have adjusted the business. It's evolved over time, and I still, to this day, am always in the state of adjustment, knowing that not everything is working as well as it could be working, or it should be working, and so I'm constantly evaluating and reevaluating to do things better.
Wow. You have to, right?
Well, I believe you have to. Not everybody does. Some people will just stop at good enough and stay locked into a frame of mind which keeps them from exploring possibilities and opportunities, to the point where I know of some people who started around the same time I did, and they tried to evolve and just couldn't, and they fell back on the classic way they had always done things. And I think that's both good, and in some ways I wish I would have kind of stayed doing the same thing. And I am doing the same thing, but just differently. And for better or for worse, I was lucky enough to have the skill to be able to use video as a means of communication and connecting with other people. Not everybody has that skill. I also have the ability to write. That's kind of what got me going in the very beginning. But had video been around in the beginning, I absolutely would have gone with video as the primary medium rather than text.
Wow. Well, thank you for that one. Leading in from that one, there's another popular one that I actually wanted to know myself. How did you get your start with Tech TV / Screensavers?
So this is
funny.
How did that
originate?
Yeah, that was a network that no longer exists at this stage. I couldn't even get the network on cable television where I happened to live, and in Iowa at the time. Some people still believe that I only got my start at Tech TV, and the truth of the matter is I had that opportunity because of the things that I was doing with Locker Gnome for years and years and years and years. I had a certain skill set, not just the ability to deliver information on camera and connect with an audience, but also the ability to connect questions with answers and have a very firm grasp on solutions to problems, because this is what I was doing with Locker Gnome. It just so happened that I could do the same thing on TV with a live caller. So my skill set translated very well to Tech TV. Let's see here. The opportunity came about because I had just, I think it'd been out a couple years. I had written a book on email publishing, and I had someone one of my favorite websites that I'd visited, they said they were featured on Tech TV as the site of the week or whatever it was. And I was like, what? They got the site of the week? So I did some information gathering and research. This is before Google, mind you. So you might think, oh, I could do that. I could easily, put people to the answers they were looking for, or I could connect them. But this was in a day and age when search engines didn't work the same way as they do today, which for all intents and purposes is Google.
Web crawler.
Yeah, well, we're talking like just ancient times. And as far as the internet's concerned, so you really had to know your stuff. You had to have a firm grasp, and if not, you had to know how to get to it quickly. So I had that skill set, which was more valuable back then than it is today because the tool sets changed. So that was an extreme asset that I came into it with. So I emailed Megan Maroney, and I said, hey, you featured my friend's website. What about mine? Here's mine. And then I think a few days later after that, they'd realized that I had written a book. They decided to pull me in on a webcam interview, much like this, and I basically did a webcam interview over an ISDN line to San Francisco, and I thought it was only going to last about 3 to 5 minutes, and it ended up being one of the longer segments for the show. It was a pretty lengthy webcam interview.
Was that the one with Leo? I'm sorry.
It likely was. I don't know if I don't remember doing more than one or two. It was Leo and Patrick were on the other end. And I didn't know them really as much as other people might have known them because I didn't have access to the network. I knew it was cool. I'm like, wow, a network for geeks and nerds, that's pretty cool, and techies. So I had I guess I was myself on camera, even though I didn't have a lot of time on camera to that point. Just very, very little experience. In fact, at that point, I had been doing the radio show, a local radio show, about technology for about a year, or just shy of a year. I think it lasted maybe a full year before I was given the opportunity. It was the next day, though, after that first webcam interview, when I got a call from my line producer saying, well, are you interested in, doing a screen test? And it was basically, he let in and said, how attached are you to Iowa? And I remember driving. I was driving at the time, and I'll never forget that moment. Yeah. And then the screen test ensued, and there were a few other people who were up for the opportunity, but I was lucky enough to have been chosen. I was lucky that there weren't a lot of other people like me who had the same skill set or ability to potentially connect with the audience, and that's how I got the opportunity.
Wow. That's great answer. I'm glad you were able to answer that one.
Well, it's the only answer I have.
Yeah.
I wish it could be far more. I was sitting in a coffee shop, and a producer saw me and said, "You're it." I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure."
No, your version is fine. The next one that I have is what made you choose to start vlogging your life?
I didn't want to do it necessarily. But I've always been, even in the early days of Blockernome, I would bring a lot of my personal life into it because I found it to be fun and interesting and different. It's what I had to bring to the table. So a lot of my family were brought into it. A lot of my tastes and perspectives were brought into it. So I've always been a bit more transparent with my personal life than other people, even through the years. Whether it was blogging with a B, this is before YouTube was around. I've always put a lot of my personal life into my professional life, which I don't know if I would necessarily recommend either. So it was the first, I'd kind of played around with the idea of doing some kind of vlog just to see if anybody would really like it. And the first one we did really didn't, I wouldn't say had an insane amount of traction because I've done personal videos on YouTube. I have, and there's a smattering of them. But in terms of something that I would consider more of a vlog, we really, in my mind, I don't think we had done one until a prequel, which was done, I don't know how long before we did the official first vlog, but the prequel vlog I think is still, and I know it's still on the channel. It's in the season 1 playlist, and it was getting together. I had an opportunity to go to a hotel up north, and so Diana and I went up there, and she said, "Oh, who else is up here is one of my favorite vloggers, Judy." And so I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Well, maybe we can get together with them. So I reached out and we connected, and so we ended up getting together for a dinner, and they were vlogging, and we didn't do anything because at that point we weren't really vlogging. So then we go home, and Diana says, well, maybe you should start vlogging. And at that point, she didn't realize that, she would get sucked into it, because that's not what she wanted. Absolutely, vlogging is not her thing per se. So I said, "Are you sure?" "I don't think anybody's going to care. We've kind of done it before." It didn't really. I didn't care. I mean, I cared, but it's like, I just don't think it's going to go anywhere. I really didn't. And almost, I would say immediately, like within less than a day, we had the video up, and people were they responded very positively to it. I mean, it surprised me. It really did. In fact, I told Diane, I'm like, if we're gonna do this, you're video editing, because I hate editing video. And of course, now, long story short, I've been editing the vlog for over a year. Which it's only been for a year. So it is her fault that it happened, but it was only, and I say that very lovingly. She's the reason it happened, and it was only because the community picked up on it that I continued to do it. In fact, for quite some time, and I think we're starting to see a better balance now. The vlog has had better consistent traction in the same channel as the tech videos, or geeky type of videos, than the geek or techie type of videos that I'd done in the past. So that tells me that the vlog has more staying power on an ongoing basis. But finding the balance between the two, I think, is, to this point, has worked. But if I were to do anything, I would likely try to find even more of a balance by expanding what I might do on a regular basis within the channel. I mean, but I guess I've never looked at it as it has to be this way. I mean, being flexible with it, and learning, what works and what doesn't work, what works better, tweaking models, it's worth doing. Because if it wasn't for, trying the vlog, I don't know if I would necessarily be bored with what I do. I'd probably have a lot more free time on my hands. But it just changed things. And you have to be, as an entrepreneur, you're always looking for opportunity. You're always looking for, the next angle. But it really worked. It really did. And I would say largely because of how the community picked up on it and appreciated it, the effort that went into it. And a great deal of effort goes into that on a daily basis. Every day. Every single day. Cool. Weekends too.
You need to tell Diana I said thank you for that.
All right. Yes. Well, yeah, I will tell her. She's downstairs, I think, talking to her parents right now.
Actually, on a side part to that, you just mentioned about how you hate editing, and that was actually going to be my lead into my next question: is how many hours of each day do you spend editing?
It takes, I think for the vlog, it takes between an hour and a half. And just think of what you might do in an hour and a half. And editing video is probably not top of mind. So I have to lose an hour a day, at least, editing a vlog. And last night I was just so tired. I was just like, I'm going to bed. I'll do it in the morning. So then I woke up this morning, slept in a bit, but then edited the vlog. In fact, that's how the vlog that I recorded today will start. Like, what was it? I knew I had to do it so bad. I dreamt last night that I was editing a vlog, and then I woke up. So I was losing time, even in sleep, dreaming of editing a vlog, and then I woke up and I had to edit a vlog. It was probably not a very productive use of sleep, but when it starts invading your dreams like that, it's that was one of my dreams that I had when I woke up this morning, went back to bed, slept for a couple of hours, and woke up and did what I had dreamt about, and that was editing. And I hate editing. It just takes time, and I mean, I even screwed up. I've screwed up edits in earlier vlogs. Yesterday, I forgot, and I had the same clip in two different spots that a couple of people picked up on, like Diana vacuuming. Yeah, I'm gonna vacuum now, and then it starts that way, and then you hear it again later, and I'm like, oh god. Well, I can just say,
twice.
Right? Hey, the floor needed vacuum. What can we say? Yeah. So that's how much time it usually takes. Sometimes if it's something that's really intense, the more post processing I have to do, the longer it takes. Because if I have to do some steady shots, or steady out the shots, or get the right clip or the right timing, it could take a greater degree of time.
How many hours of each day do you normally go through? Is it just minutes, or is it hours?
Minutes. Very rarely. Like when I was in London, I may have an hour's worth of footage, but very, very rarely does it get that high. It may average between 20 and 30 minutes. Sometimes lower than that, and that becomes a bit more of a challenge.
All right. Well, the next one I have is at what point during either locker gnome or starting your vlogs did you find out you can make a living doing what you love?
Pretty quick. Well within, I started in 1996, so it was well before the year was over, and I recognized we had some value. This is before advertising was a viable, opportunity online, but I knew we had information. I knew I had the audience and I was growing the audience, and I knew that there would be sponsors or advertisers who would want to get in front of that audience. And that remained a tremendous pain point, because I've always struggled with not being able to uh, um, I have so much opportunity, just not enough time in the day to sell. So do I spend my time creating the content, or do I spend my time selling? And ultimately, I'm both. I have to look at both as the opportunity. I am the product, but I also know how to sell the product. And I've tried, and I've reached out over and over and over again and tried to work with various and sundry people to fulfill that role. And some of them kind of do, but mostly kind of don't. And unfortunately, there are a lot of really poor salespeople out there, and they're more expensive than good salespeople, and good salespeople are expensive to begin with. If there was something that I would have lacked at this point, that's been a core component, but not because I was short of a business model or short of an opportunity, but just the scalability of time and minimizing lost opportunity cost, and making sure that what I'm putting out there still has some value to it. In fact, there have been there's always going to be people who complain. I might do a 10-minute long video, and out of that 10 minutes, a minute is dedicated to sponsors, which to me is like, well, hey, the whole thing was free. I delivered how much information and entertainment in that chunk of time, and would there be a better way of doing it? Possibly, but I would never want to see everything come to a point where there was no value in the content or the information that was being delivered. And I refuse. I mean, I just, if I don't see a value in putting something out there, I won't do it in general. I mean, that's the way I've always approached it. So I know some people are more sensitive than others, but I have to walk that line. And it's only because if the way the freemium model tends to work, I'm able to do what I do because, and people appreciate that, only because I have a way to offset those costs. Like, everybody's going to need a job, man. This just so happens to be my quote unquote job. So I mean, for the most part, though, I think people are happy that you do have some squeaky wheels, and they tend to be loud and obnoxious, and people that wouldn't necessarily support you to begin with. I mean, they do, but on their terms, and unfortunately, you cannot support someone on your terms. It's when what you're willing to bear, what someone is presenting comes together. That's where you have that perfect mix. And of course, any kind of supportive effort underneath it. And, I put so much out there, and don't necessarily, make money from it. I've shared so many times over people getting like one gadget or another, and I didn't get anything from it. The company who they got it through, doesn't know that the transaction happened because I was talking about it, right? There's a value in that. And what's that value to someone who needed that information? It's invaluable, right? And so there's always going to be a trade-off. There's no such thing as an absolutely perfect scenario, but the closer you can get to matching expectations on every front, the better balance you're going to have in a business model like the one that I've been pursuing over the years.
Wow. Well, thank you. The next one I have is one that I really wanted to ask you. One of the main reasons why I entered into the contest, and it had to do with after seeing your video during your ungrounded trip to London.
Oh yeah.
One of the things you said there was storytelling and goal orientation equals relevance. I wanted you to see if you could explain that a little bit more. I know you can't go into a great deal, but
so I didn't have that. Sure, and that's a great question. And by the way, I'm sorry that I'm so blown out with the light. The light in this position isn't as optimized as it might be from the camera that I usually use in this position for most of the YouTube videos. Shoot this direction towards my desk with the monitors. So I apologize that I'm extreme. I am white. I'm just usually not this glowing white. So it was relevance plus. No. What was it again? I wrote it down.
Storytelling and goal orientation equals relevance.
There we go. So I wrote it down real quick during the time that we were brainstorming at the ungrounded flight, or just before the ungrounded flight. And storytelling has always been very valuable to me because this is what you latch on to more than anything. You might get information from somebody, like I share information, but I'm always more of the long-winded kind of sharing information kind of guy. Very rarely can I get in and out. Just like I just want to talk. I just want to share my perspective, share my ideas. But in doing that, I also am potentially telling a story. And part of the vlog, or having a vlog, is that overarching story that just never ends. It's a never-ending story, which is why Atreyu is the name of the camera, not because Atreyu was a heavy metal band. That would apparently was so, and I had no idea. But the storytelling, I think people remember stories, and they latch on to stories. I mean, our human communication evolved through stories. We've known stories our entire lives, not just as kids, but this is how information gets passed along, or would have been passed along, certainly back before we had the ability to write, or to communicate in that fashion. So storytelling is, I think, a core part of our human condition, and I think is still very important in terms of how we relate to one another, not just in real time, but also in this sense of permanence in time. And I mean, storytelling for storytelling is fun. Like if I were to tell you, why do I like this glass because it's shaped this way? Why do you care? What's the reason I'm telling the story of this is why I like the way this glass is shaped? If there's no goal to telling a story, then you're just potentially just telling the story. There doesn't have to be a goal. But in relation to what we were doing with British Airways and the Ungrounded project, was specifically trying to put a finer point on STEM engagement in a variety of scenarios. STEM short for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I started thinking, well, how do we get people, or kids specifically, interested in these topics, which really are, they talk about the human condition. Our human survival at this point is largely contingent on STEM: science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Without this, I mean, we wouldn't be able to be talking in real time, recording the video. We wouldn't have much of what has made this world so small without intelligence that we were able to apply. And so I started thinking through what's the formula that would bring relevance. Well, for something to be relevant to somebody else, you almost have to know what and why. So what? Storytelling. Why? Goal. And that's relevance. To me, it was like, well, you need relevance for a kid to go, well, why am I going to do that? Well, there's the goal. Who cares how you get there? This is why you want to, if you want to achieve a goal, it's got to be relevant for you. Otherwise, it's just perfunctory. And if I'm talking to someone and there's no relevance to them, it's just right over their head. So in order to get, to me, from my mind, when someone's watching a video that I might do, is it relevant to them? And if it lacks relevance, they may not be as attached to it. And when we're talking about getting people interested and involved without relevance to their life, why do they care? I mean, if you look at a lot of people who say, well, I was inspired to be a scientist because I saw Mr. Wizard on TV when I was growing up and it looked amazing and I wanted to be that. So it was relevant to them, and so their goal somehow was matched to the relevance, but it was that story that came across, or they saw this connection, or they had this connection with something that really was relatively intangible, but it was that the presentation or the storytelling in conjunction with a goal that ended up bringing them relevance. And then they kind of picked up the ball and ran with it. In fact, when I was on this the ungrounded flight beforehand, you can hear him actually. I was filming one of the signs, and he says, "Chris," and I finished the recording and then turned around, and he said that he got into his job because he watched us on Tech TV, and he's a graphic. I think he's the graphic designer or something like a design engineer for Waze, which was recently acquired by Google for a rather large sum of money. And it was just kind of nice to know that something that I did, brought relevance to him, and brought that focal point to him. But it was, to me, it was because of what I was presenting out there. My goal in presenting information is to make you aware that these type of glasses exist. That's my goal, right? And it's telling you the story of, I love this glass because one day I was, doing something and something else happened. it's making those connection points, and this is why to me when I'm doing a YouTube video, it's less about the goal, and I'm more interested in the story, getting something across, but telling my story at the same time. Some people don't like that. They might get upset because they just want me to get the information. Like, well, if you want just the information, I'm not going to be able to do it. It's just not. It doesn't fit me.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that, though. I know you might have not meant it towards my side of the story, but I went into a job interview using that to tell my story and who I am.
Really? What, that formula?
Yeah, I used that formula to try to get a job, and I think it might have worked. I'll let you know.
Well, hopefully they won't take it, because I don't know how scientifically accurate it was. I was just kind of bringing, this sounds right. You guys can figure out if it works. But it just seemed made sense to me.
What you said is true, though. Like, you want to make something relevant on your vlogs, and for some strange reason, that just stuck out to me. I know it wasn't meant towards that round table to take it into an interview, but I used it, and I think it worked because I was doing a lot of interviews where what I was doing wasn't working. And I could tell right away that they weren't engaged and not listening to me because I sound too professional because I'm an ex-manager. That's my background. So I went into that telling a story about who I am, let them know that I do have goals and where I want to be 5 years from now or whatnot in whatever job I'm applying for. And it shows that I'm relevant to them to hire me. So
perfect. I think we've got this may be the beginning of a book here, the winning formula. Well, but storytelling allows us to, we've got a shared interest, and wow, I didn't realize we have that in common. And the more we have in common, the more we realize, that there's a lot of coming together, especially when we have a lot in common and there are goals involved. There's suddenly a lot of relevance in keeping that communication moving forward.
So I thank you for that. It was really good. I'm glad I was able to see that.
If it works for somebody else, you got to let me know. If you don't get the job, do not blame the formula. I never promised you to create success with it.
I have a good feeling about it. Don't worry. I'll let you know next week. Going into the next one, because it's something I knew that was very important to you, and I know about it because after the first night of Vlogger Fair, you recorded a video, and it ties into my question. When you started the idea of Vlogger Fair, did you ever think it'd be so successful?
Nope. We didn't know it would have sold out up until like the days leading up to it. Honestly, my measure for success quickly became don't lose money. And, I had to wheel and deal to make that happen. And so we at least broke even. I'm very grateful for that. And there are a few things that are still outstanding. We had a few issues apparently with the video broadcast, which is sad and unfortunate. So I'm not sure how much of that we're going to be able to salvage, if any. The audio seemed to be really subpar, and I don't even know if this audio is coming across okay. Well, maybe you, but in the recording, it's a separate thing. Yeah, to me, I didn't have much expectations other than to try it, see what worked, see who liked it, who wanted to do it again, and then we could adjust from there. So as long as we didn't lose money, and we didn't lose money, then I would consider it a success.
What was your biggest moment during Vlogger Fair? What would you say that would be?
I don't know if I had one. I think it was just looking around and seeing all those people. I'm like, oh, thank God, it worked.
And okay, well, the next one I have is what made you study English to get an English major and not computer science or engineering?
Because computer science and engineering bored me. I'm not a science guy. I like technology, but not necessarily how to put it together, but what it can do for you. The communications aspect of it. So if anything, I'd probably have a predilection to go down into the communications path, which didn't really, it existed, but it was different back then. We're talking the day and age when multimedia was transparency you could put on an overhead projector. We didn't have PowerPoint. Hello. It barely existed, if it did exist at that point in time. It certainly wasn't being used like it is today. I was originally an elementary education major with a minor in theater, and then after I was using the internet for quite some time, the internet at that point, we had text browsers and message boards and chat boards, BBSs, news groups, no websites, so to speak. If there were sites, they were few and far between. But I really enjoyed the creative writing process and figured out how to shoehorn a major around that, and so I became an English major with a minor in creative writing, which I never actually completed because I did not take the course to fulfill a creative writing minor. Expository writing just was boring to me, and I'm like, no. So I ended up just graduating magna cum laude with a degree in English education. Magna, not summa. I'm pretty sure it was magna. Yeah, I think it was magna. One of the cum laudes.
All right. And what was your biggest inspiration growing up?
I don't know if I had any big inspirations. I think I knew what I didn't want. I remember my dad telling me one day, I at that point I was beginning to grow facial hair, and Dad said, one of these days you're gonna have to shave every day, and I'm like, I don't want that, and I hated getting dressed up, so I said, I don't want to shave every day, I don't want to get dressed up. I knew all the things I didn't want, so I just carved out a career around the things that I didn't want more than what I did want. My parents had a couple of businesses when I was growing up, and I wasn't necessarily attached to them in any way. They owned hobby shops, and I just wasn't interested so much in the hobbies or the crafts. But it was, I remember that, semi fondly. I'm glad I didn't have to go into that business because I would probably be very bored. I was not interested in that at all. Hey Wicket, come here, bud. Come here. Come here. Come here. Sorry. If you could hear him on your end.
No,
Mickey, come here, bud. Otherwise, he's just going to continue. I'm the one in the interview. He didn't ask you. Sometimes you just got to put them in their place.
Yeah.
I've said it before. I remember listening to Weird Al Yankovic for the first time when I was in the 7th grade. I was visiting a friend over summer break for a week in southern Iowa, and he played this tape for me, and I just like, wow, this guy's pretty funny. And I don't know, I don't know if I'd say he was a true inspiration, but I just like the way that it was just funny, wacky, goofy, nutty, counterculture, and fun, and I like that. Something about that resonated with me, if only because I grew up in a family that was very jovial. We had our stresses, certainly, but also very, we never had a problem sharing our sense of humor, as bizarre as it was. So I think it was a mix of a lot of things, family, upbringing, things I didn't want, things I enjoyed. I think that all those things put together make up inspiration, but there's never really that one thing or one person.
Well, thank you. And that's what I have so far on my end. I took a few from the comment stream from YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, but unless you wanted
Sure,
pull
no,
those
go
yourself.
for it. No,
Okay,
go for it.
I got Greg Clark from YouTube asks, how long were you with Screensavers and do you still talk to your previous coworkers there?
Every so often. In fact, the first person who purchased a ticket for Vlogger Fair was Joe of Joe TV. He worked. He was in this. I guess he was in the studio when I did my. I don't know if it was the screen test or something else, but it was funny. I saw him again just recently. I talk to the old tech TVers every so often. I did call for help for just shy of 2 years. I didn't really do the screensavers. Every so often I was called in to pinch hit. But the interesting thing was, many people don't know this. When I was hired, they weren't sure if I was going to be hosting Call for Help or the screensavers. I could have gone either way.
Wow.
And I ended up going Call for Help. For whatever reason. It wasn't because of my request.
All right. And also from YouTube, Rainbow Six Vegas Lover asks, what's the size of your memory card in your vlog camera?
128 gigs. I don't have. It's down there right now. I think it's either. Yeah, I think it's 128 gigs.
All right. And let's see, Pirelli Yanez, also from YouTube, asks, what music do you and Diana listen to?
Whatever's on. If Diana's listening to something, very rarely do I joke about it when she listens to country, but there are very few genres that I'm just like I can't listen to this other than like death metal. I'm not a fan. If it sounds like noise, I'm just like not loud.
You need people to understand what you're listening to, I think.
I appreciate a good melody. Great harmony. I love harmony. Harmony is like my favorite. If there's a musical thing that I love, it's harmony. I always loved harmony.
Let's see. Also from YouTube, Uncooked Bacon asks, how do you get that like button on top of the right-hand side of your video on YouTube?
It's right now it's an annotation. So you can upload a graphic that's an annotation that you can have run throughout the video or a certain period of time during the video. And what I did was I screenshot the emoji character for a thumbs up on OS 10 and then just used that graphic. So it's just
That simple,
it's
huh?
yeah. So if you hover over it or click it, like it would be somewhere I can't reach that direction because I think it would be over next to you. It would be to your left or your
Right
right. Then
there.
it would be over there on the other side from where I'm capturing. If you held up your other hand, like there, kind of yeah, it'd be up there somewhere.
Right there.
It's linked to the channel, so you can click it, or if you just see it, it may serve as a reminder. But if you click it, then you can actually subscribe to the channel if you're not already.
All right. Mark Schwab from Twitter asks, how do you balance what you share with the world with aspects of your personal life and what you keep private?
You know, I learned over time to not share everything and controlling what it is that I was sharing such that I'm not going to violate someone else's privacy or feeling of safety or making them look bad. If I share something, it's usually not to make someone look bad, or certainly that's not intentional if it does happen, and it rarely if ever does it. You just learn what's worth sharing, what's not worth sharing, and then how you share it. There are some people that, like when Diana and I are doing the vlogs, they don't see our interplay between each other and how she'll play very rarely will she play the straight person if there's between the two of us, and so she'll do something that's kind of silly and I'll be more serious, like and some people take that as I'm being rude or whatever it is, but we're doing it for a comedic effect. Like there's the straight man, a silly man, and we've done our best to kind of play that, but that doesn't mean that it's always that way off camera. Sometimes it is. Sometimes there are great moments that unfortunately we can't vlog, and when we try to recapture it, it just doesn't work as well. But you just learn not to share everything, and if you're sharing something, just try to make it of value for one value reason, because you wanted to share it, because you want to share the moment, or you think other people are going to find it interesting, potentially. And I don't know. It's just a fine balance. Don't share everything. There's no need to share everything. Believe it or not, I don't share everything. I can't.
All right. Ben Vincent from Facebook asks, if you had to choose between your collection of Darth Vaders or your collection of Lego minifigs, which would it be? That's a great
Minifigs.
question.
Minifigs.
That quick, huh?
I wouldn't even debate it. I wouldn't even debate it.
All right.
Yeah, minifigs.
All right. James Page, also from Facebook. What are your best tips
Wait,
for
hang on.
creating?
There's my Mr. Gold. I've got the Series 10 finally, and so I'll be doing it. I think I'm going to do a separate video on that soon. But the Mr. Gold right there, I've got him here as a reminder that I need to do that video at some point in the near future.
Yeah, you've had him there for some time now.
I have. He's been there
Yeah.
for a bit.
All right. James Page from Facebook asks, what's the best tips for creating a sustainable income for yourself?
Work.
I think you already talked about that.
Kind of did, but it's just work. I mean, sometimes you strike upon a business model that works better than another business model. You have a certain skill set that's demanded in the marketplace. You work. It's going to take work, or it's going to take a great degree of experience to be seen as having work that's valuable. So now I'm able to do engagements with partners or brands, and am able to set up a price that is a good price. I mean, I would have imagined commanding something like that. But it's only because of the amount of experience that I've accrued over these years, and that's because I've done a lot of work. You got to put a lot of work into something, and it takes a lot of effort to make something look easy.
Well, Zanhi from Facebook also, I hope I said his name right, and I apologize if I didn't, Zanhi.
I've
That is,
slaughtered so many names over the years. Don't even worry about
yeah, I'm
it.
not even saying his last name just in case I slaughter it even more than I did. But he asked, do you keep your peanut butter in the fridge or out of the fridge, and why?
I think out of the fridge, because if it doesn't warrant being refrigerated, there's no need. And I think the reason why is just because it's smoother, especially for spreading.
Yep, that's a great answer. Well, that's what I have so far, Chris. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else, but I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity and also say that you're like a sitcom to me. The vlogs in particular are like a sitcom, so I look forward to it every day.
I
Think
try
about
to
it.
No, thank you. I try to throw a bit of humor, even though sometimes it's twisted. It's my bit of humor. Um, I try to create whenever I do create something, I try to create something that I would want to watch, not just me doing it for doing it, not for just to do it. So especially in the vlog, I'll try to put it together in such a way that if even if it's 10 minutes long, it feels more like 3.
Yeah, it's a daily routine for me and my little girl every morning now, so
Awesome.
we
Well,
appreciate it.
sometimes I get a little blue, and I've recorded things like I probably shouldn't put in there. Even though I like it, I've got a wacky sense of humor, and sometimes it is. I am an adult. I'm almost 40 years old, and some of my humor is definitely more skews more that direction. Then again, I've seen like Disney movies that have like references that are so adult. Going, did they just put
Yeah.
that in there? I'm like, there's no way that was what.
Just
So,
watch any Bugs Bunny cartoon.
oh, I know. Tell me about it. So yeah, every once in a while, I always warn people. And Diana will sometimes say something. I'll say that's it's family friendly, or I try to make it family friendly, but never make that promise so that if it does happen, that I can get away with it.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity you gave me today.
Sure, no problem. Well, I'm glad you responded to the giveaway, and I think everybody would have benefited. We gave them a chance to ask the questions, and they did, and you were a great question asker person guy.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yes.
I'm no James Lipton, but I did my best.
That's quite all right. Is it Tipton or Lipton?
I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't. Maybe it is Tipton. No, I think it's James Lipton. But
Okay.
we're inside Chris's
Head.
studio.
Yes. Yeah, you are inside Chris's studio. That's a great title for the video. Inside Chris's studio. Inside the geeks
Yeah.
studio. What?
There you,
Inside the actor studio.
yeah.
Inside the
Inside.
inside the vloggers studio.
There you go. That
There we
sounds better.
tripping
I like
through a
that.
title for the video here, as it were. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, no, thank you. I appreciate the all the support that you've given.
Well, thank you.